Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this TV horror series season review video. This is part of my 2 month series here where I'm taking a look at the Tales from the Crypt series from the 90s. Today, we're going to take a look at season 5 of Tales from the Crypt. The first 4 seasons have been watched and reviewed. They're up on my channel if you want to check them out and you haven't seen them. Um, so yeah, we got 2 more seasons after this, and then of course my final wrap-up video, which will include my top 10 all-time Tales from the Crypt episodes and my bottom 5 or least favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes. That'll be the end of April, probably the beginning of May, possibly. So we'll see. But this also, before I get started, it might be the last time that I'm filming from this location. As you can see behind me in my shelf, a lot of movies are missing. And that's because a lot of stuff's gotten moved already. So yeah, this could be the last video that I shoot from this location. There could be one more for season 6 around the 20th of March. We'll just have to see how it plays out. But anyway, season 5 of Tales from the Crypt that I have here, as part of the whole package, all 7 seasons. Yeah, season 5 doesn't have much for special features. It basically has a death of some salesman virtual comic book where you have the crypt keeper that's basically telling you the story as they're showing the comic book on the screen. That's really all. It's kind of disappointing compared to the other seasons in terms of special features, but I mean, I guess they can't have knockout special features for every all 7 seasons, I suppose. But generally speaking, I enjoyed season 5. I think it's another solid Tales from the Crypt season. That being said, I've decided in my last review, besides giving you a top, or my last video for this series, besides doing a top 10 episodes and bottom 5 episodes of the entire series, I'm also going to rank all 7 seasons as well in that final video around May 1st. So I'll give you my least favorite season all the way to my favorite or best season as I see it. So just a little tidbit there. But yeah, I think season 5 is pretty solid. I don't think it's quite as solid as the previous 2 seasons, but it hasn't fallen off that much yet. Still a lot more good episodes than bad, in my opinion, for season 5. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with my least favorite of the season, my bottom 3, if you will. And there were 2 that really stood out above or below, if you will, the rest of them. And then there's one that I still gave a 3 out of 5 to, um, but it's kind of a weak 3 out of 5. So that's why it's my number 3 least favorite of the season. And that's going to be near the end of the season, an episode entitled Oil's Well That Ends Well, that aired on November 24th, 1993, was directed by Paul Abascal and written by Scott Nimmerfurl. Yeah, I think I already said it aired. It's the 11th episode of the season. This is one with Lou Diamond Phillips and Priscilla Presley, who are basically the con artist pair, if you will. They try to extort money from people. So they go to this bar, and these southern investors that are there trying to convince them that there's oil under a graveyard, and it's got some twists and turns towards the end, but I don't know. I didn't think compared to the other episodes this season, other than the next 2 I'm going to mention, I didn't think it really stood out or was all that great, in my opinion. Some people might like it. It's certainly not a terrible episode. That's why I still gave it a 3 out of 5. But it's the weakest 3 out of 5 that I gave this season. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's the twist wasn't a huge surprise at the end. Um, there's kind of a double twist as they tend to do with these episodes, and it's fine. It's a fine episode. It's just not one of my favorites. That's as much as I'll say. Now these last 2, the 2 and 1 of the bottom 3, I did give a 2.5 out of 5 to. So these 2, in my opinion, did stand out below the others. My second least favorite of the season is going to be Well Cooked Hams, which was directed by Elliot Silverstein, and written by Andrew Kevin Walker. This aired on November 3rd, 1993, and it's the 8th episode of season 5. This is the one about the turn of the century tale where you have Billy Zane, who plays Miles Fetterman, basically a wannabe magician or an amateur magician. He ends up blaming his assistant on a failed show and fires her. Shortly after, he's met by another magician, Franz Kragen, played by Martin Sheen, who invites him to see his show. And he's fascinated by it, but wants to know the secret of of his big magic trick. Boy, sometimes my tongue just doesn't work right. The box of death, that's the big trick that it's known as. But he refuses to tell him how he pulls off the trick, so Miles ends up killing him and steals it for his own. And of course, in typical Tales from the Crypt fashion, he gets his comeuppance in the end. And it kind of has an interesting twist, but it's just a forgettable episode for me. There's just nothing really that memorable about it. I mean, Billy Zane is fairly entertaining as he normally is, but the episode itself is just kind of meh. It's just kind of there to me. So that's why it's my second least favorite of the season. But my least favorite episode of the season was an easy decision for me, and that's the fourth episode of the season that aired on October 6th, 1993, directed by Roman Flender and written by Larry Wilson, entitled Food for Thought. This is about the great Zambini, played by Ernie Hudson, an abusive and mentally unstable circus performer with psychic abilities and a passion for cooking, who attempts to read the mind of his wife and assistant Connie, as she can already read his. When he is finally able to read Connie's mind, he does so in the middle of an affair that she's having with the show's fire eater, Johnny, causing Zambini to go insane with jealousy. This this episode's just completely forgettable. There's nothing. I didn't even feel like that could have a Tales from the Crypt episode, or even a decent one, to be honest with you. It's the one episode from the entire season that just kind of left me just not feeling anything, which is really the worst thing that an episode of a show can do. When it's not even so bad that you hate it or have to rant about it. It's just kind of, I feel nothing. And that's kind of how I feel about this episode, Food for Thought. So that's why it's my least favorite from season 5. Okay, now we're on to the top 5, and of course, with the better seasons, I have a few honorable mentions before I get into the actual 5. Um, one of my honorable mentions is going to be People Who Live in Brass Hearses. This is the fifth episode of season 5. It aired on October 13th, 1993. It was directed by Russell McCauley and written by Scott Nimmerfro. This is the one that has you have Bill Paxton and Brad Dourif in this episode. You have Billy DeLuca, Bill Paxton plays Billy DeLuca, a thief with an addiction for butter and butter products, which is interesting. He's released from prison after serving a 2-year sentence for embezzlement. With the help of his mentally challenged brother Virgil, played by Brad Dourif, Billy sets out to get revenge on Earl Bird, the jolly ice cream man who had reported him to the police by robbing the ice cream warehouse where he works. Unfortunately, the dim-witted Virgil manages to screw up every step of Billy's plan along the way. This is a really fun episode. It's definitely more of a lighthearted kind of episode, but obviously you have Bill Paxton and Brad Dourif in an episode. That's got to go at least on the honorable mention side of a top list. They're both really good in this episode. I really don't know what the point of his butter product or butter addiction was. Excuse me. That kind of came out of nowhere and really didn't play into the episode all that much. It's just just sort of a funny quip or side note, I guess. But this episode has a really interesting twist at the end, which I did not see coming, and it's rare that an episode or a movie can do that to me. So it had to be mentioned at least. It almost made my top 5, but I just couldn't quite put it in my top 5. But it's definitely an honorable mention that I really enjoyed. As I said, it's got some violence, it's got some blood and gore, but it's really got a twist at the end that just really left me with my mouth wide open. And like I said, Bill Paxton and Brad Dourif, they're always going to get a notable mention. Two great actors. Rest in peace, Bill Paxton. It's still incredibly sad to me. He had so much more to do, in my opinion, but he gave us a great legacy. But anyway, that's one honorable mention, and then my other honorable mention is going to be where did it go? Came the Dawn, an episode 10 of season 5 that aired on November 17th, 1993. Was directed by Yuli Edel and written by Rod Finley. This is with Brooke Shields and Perry King. This episode had great atmosphere. So basically, you have Norma, played by Brooke Shields, who's this criminal hitchhiker stranded on the side of the road in a thunderstorm. She catches a ride with Roger, played by Barry King, a seemingly timid rich man who invites her to stay in his cabin while the storm clears up. As she prepares to rob Roger's cabin of his valuables, Norma learns that Roger already has a woman in his life, and that he and this woman are closer than she thinks. And that's as much as I'll say about it. It definitely has psycho vibes going on, which I probably just gave it away. But yeah, this was a really fun episode. Just I thought both Brooke Shields and Perry King did a good job. Very atmospheric. Maybe the twist is obvious to some. I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time with it. And it was definitely, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I also gave People Who Live in Brass Hearses a 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5, as I did with Came the Dawn. Two really solid episodes that just didn't quite make my top five, but definitely honorable mention. So now we get into my top five, and I actually switched this one. Um, oh, you know what? I think You know what? I gave you the wrong. So, People Who Live in Brass Hearses actually was my fifth favorite episode of the season. I got arrows drawn. Initially, this was going to be an honorable mention, and I realized I liked the episode and the twist too much, and the performances by Bill Paxton and Brad Dourif. So, Came the Dawn is an honorable mention, but my other honorable mention is Halfway Horrible. Sorry about that, guys. Halfway Horrible, which was the second to the last episode that aired in season five. That's the 12th episode of season five, directed by Gregory Wyden and written by William Gaines. It aired on December 1st, 1993. This one has Clancy Brown in it, who plays Roger Lassen, a ruthless president of a chemical company, and he discovers that his key partners are being murdered one by one. He's also told that the FDA has contacted his company, which is currently developing a new long lasting preservative known as Xanathian B, to announce that they are considering suspending the preservative's release because of the murders. Thinking back to when he and his friends traveled to Brazil on a business trip, Roger remembers that he offered his best friend Alex, played by John Tenney, as a human sacrifice in exchange for receiving samples of the plant uh, Exathon B, as created by an indigenous tribe. So this is a really interesting episode that like I said, this was my honorable mention. I apologize. My arrows just didn't lead me right. But Clancy Brown is always great in everything that he's in, and he's great here. Um, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it unfolded well. You got these murders that happen at the first half of the episode, and they all kind of lead to a surprise guest appearance. Not a guest appearance, but a character appearance towards the end of the episode. And then the character that Clancy Brown plays has to do something to try to rid himself of the problem that he's got at the end of the. I really enjoyed it. So Halfway Horrible, along with Came the Dawn, are my two honorable mentions, and then my fifth favorite episode is People Who Live in Brass Hearses, which I described a couple of minutes ago with Bill Paxton and um, Brad Dourif. So that's my fifth favorite episode, People Who Live in Brass Hearses, with the ice cream man and the big twist at the end. Okay, now we're back on track. So now I can give you my fourth favorite episode, which is going to be As Ye Sow, which was the second episode that aired in season five, directed by Kyle MacLachlan and written by Ron Finley. It aired on October 2nd, 1993. This is the one with Hector Elizondo and Sam Waterston. So basically, Hector Elizondo, who I'm sure I butchered that name about three times already, he believes that his wife Bridget, played by Patsy Kensit, is cheating on him. Businessman Leo Burns hires. Oh, so Leo, who's played by Hector Alonso, Eli Zondo, hires J.J. DeVoe, played by Sam Waterston, who I'm a big fan of, a sleazy and dubious detective, to spy on her. Soon after, DeVoe gathers evidence that leads Leo to believe that Bridget is indeed having an affair with a local priest. With his imagination running wild, Leo resorts to drastic measures to fix the dilemma. This is another great episode. The performances are great. Like I said, I love Sam Waterston from Law and Order, most notably. Hector Elizondo is also great in this episode and has another great twist at the end. It's just a very well unfolding episode with good atmosphere, and I really enjoyed it. I also like the fact that it shows how a character's how if they let their mind run wild, they can get the wrong idea and the wrong assumptions about what's going on, and then kind of have egg on their face. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So yeah, As Ye Sow is my fourth favorite episode from season 5. My third favorite episode is the very next episode that aired, entitled "Forever Ambergris." This aired on October 2nd, 1993 as well. It's the third episode from season 5. It was directed by Gary Fletter and written by Scott Rosenberg. This is the one about the combat photographer Dalton Scott, played by Roger Daltrey, who's told by his boss that he's losing his edge. And after he visits his protege, an up and coming photographer, Isaac Ike 40, who's played by Steve Buscemi, who I really like, for dinner, Dalton grows enamored with Ike's beautiful wife Bobby, played by Lisette Anthony. When Dalton and Ike are sent to Central America alongside a group of mercenaries for an assignment, the former cooks up a deadly scheme to send the latter into a village ravaged by biological weapons, where like where Ike eventually ends up contracting a virulent disease that causes him to rapidly decay in an attempt to steal Bobby from him. Bobby's his wife. Steve Buscemi's wife is wait a minute. Um Bobby from I don't know why they use the word Bobby. His wife's name was oh yeah, Bobby, played by Lisette Anthony. Oh boy, guys, I'm having trouble today. Anyway, this is an awesome episode for the gore effects. This is all about the gore, the gore. If you're a gore hound and you want to check out one Tales from the Crypt episode from season 5, definitely check out Forever Ambergris. Ambergris. I don't know if it's Ambergris or Ambergris. Anyway, it's got great gore throughout the episode. It's got some violence in the episode. It has nudity in the episode. This episode kind of has it all, frankly. And even though the story isn't overly strong, those other elements are the nudity. There's sex. The gore is the thing that stands out here, though, and I thought it really worked for me. It was definitely a good Tales from the Crypt episode. That's why Forever Ambergris is my third favorite episode from season 5. My second favorite episode from season 5 is going to be Creep Course, which was the ninth episode of season 5 that aired on November 10th, 1993, was directed by Jeffrey Boehm and written by William Gaines. This is the one with Anthony Michael Hall and Jeffrey Jones, who basically come upon this nerdy bookworm, Stella Bishop, played by Nina Size Masgo. She's tricked by Reggie, played by Anthony Michael Hall, a charismatic jock not charismatic jock into giving him the answers for their upcoming Egyptology test. Little does Stella know that Reggie's in a league with the Egyptology instructor, the pompous Professor Finley, played by Jeffrey Jones, in exchange for Finley giving the answers to the test himself. So he wait a minute. In exchange for Finley giving Reggie the answers to the test himself so he can pass the course to keep his football scholarship, Reggie brings Stella to Finley's home and tricks her into becoming a virgin sacrifice for Ramseth, a long preserved mummy in search of his lover. This is a really good atmospheric episode as well, and I really enjoy Jeffrey Jones, and Anthony Michael Hall at this time was good. I wouldn't say great. And the young gal who I'm not familiar with, Nina uh Masgo, she was good as well. She really did a good job playing the bookworm Stella Bishop. It has a great twist at the end. Yeah, it's just a great episode all around. It's creepy, it's atmospheric. I just really enjoyed it. It's just a really good, solid episode, and I definitely recommend checking out Creep Course, my second favorite episode from season 5. But my favorite episode from the season has to be Two for the Show, which was the sixth episode of season 5 that aired on October 20th, 1993, was directed by Kevin Hooks and written by Gilbert Adler. This is a lot like Strangers on a Train, if you've ever seen that movie from Hitchcock back in, I think, like the 40s or 50s. But basically, it's an homage to that, where you have Andy Conway, played by David Paymer, a talkative workaholic husband who's informed by his wife Emma, played by Tracy Lords, actually, that she's having an affair and wants a divorce. In a rage, Andy stabs Emma to death and cuts her into pieces. He is investigated by Officer Fine, played by Vincent Spano, a police officer with his own marital issues. After stuffing Emma's remains into a suitcase, Andy boards a train to get rid of the evidence. When Andy discovers that Fine is on board the same train, the two men get caught up in a deadly game of cat and mouse. And that's what I love about this episode. The two actors, the two leads, they have great dialogue, they have great chemistry together. This episode has a great twist that maybe some people can see coming. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't a shocker to me, but they still did a really good job with the twist of this episode. And it's another very good sort of unfolding mystery story. And yeah, it's just great. So it was an easy decision for me, for two for the show, to be the best episode of season 5 for me. And I say that despite the fact that I'll fully admit the episode has a lot of plot contrivances and a lot of, you kind of just have to turn your brain off and go with it. And it's kind of the old shut up and don't ask questions, because there is a lot of ridiculous plot contrivances in this episode. But I enjoyed it because of the two main leads and the twists, that I just didn't care. The episode also has some pretty decent blood and gore in it as well. So, yep, two for the show. Definitely check it out. My favorite episode from season 5 of Tales from the Crypt, the great season of the show once again. Check it out. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like my video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming season review videos for this series. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content, not only the rest of this series, but what I have coming out beyond this. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope everybody's doing well. I apologize for the time of this video. We're at 22 minutes, but I had some tongue twisters today. Um, Hope everybody's doing well, and stay scared. Bye.